The notification chimed on my phone as I pulled into the driveway of our Highlands Ranch home. Product launch successful. Revenue projections exceeded by 300%. 3 years of 18-hour days, countless sleepless nights debugging code, and endless investor meetings had finally paid off. Secure Finance Solutions was about to revolutionize digital banking. I grabbed the champagne bottle from the passenger seat. Dom Pérignon 2010, Rebecca's absolute favorite, and practically jogged toward the front door. We could finally take that month-long trip to Italy she'd been dreaming about. Maybe buy the cabin in Aspen she'd shown me in those real estate magazines. The house felt wrong the moment I stepped inside. The air was too still, too formal. Our golden retriever Max was nowhere to be seen, and the usual sounds of Rebecca moving around the kitchen were absent. Instead, I heard hushed voices from the living room. The furniture had been rearranged. Rebecca sat rigidly on our leather couch, her posture unnaturally straight, flanked by her sister Emma and a man I'd never seen before. He was maybe mid-30s, carefully groomed beard, wearing expensive linen clothes like he'd stepped out of a meditation retreat brochure. "Daniel," Rebecca said, her voice strained and formal. "We need to talk." I set the champagne on our coffee table, the same table where we'd played board games with the kids just last weekend. "Okay, should I know who this is?" The bearded man stood with practiced grace, extending his hand with the kind of calm that immediately made me suspicious. "Dr. Kenneth Ashford. I'm a certified life coach and meditation instructor. Rebecca's been working with me for the past few months." "Working with you on what exactly?" I looked between the three of them, confusion growing by the second. "Becca, what's going on here?" Emma shifted forward, her expression serious in a way I'd never seen before. She'd always been the fun sister, the one who brought wine to family dinners and told inappropriate jokes. "Daniel, we're all very concerned about you. Your behavior lately has been—" "My behavior?" I laughed, but it came out sharp and hollow. "I just closed the biggest deal in our company's history. I thought we'd celebrate." "This is exactly what we're talking about," Rebecca said, tears starting to well in her brown eyes. "You're so focused on work, on control, on being right all the time. You don't see how it affects the people around you." Dr. Ashford nodded with practiced understanding. "Daniel, when was the last time you really listened to Rebecca? I mean truly listened, without getting defensive or immediately trying to solve her problems." I stared at him, feeling heat rise in my chest. "Who exactly are you to ask me that? I don't even know you." "See?" Rebecca's voice cracked. "This is exactly what I mean. The anger. The immediate suspicion. Remember our anniversary last month? I forgot to make dinner reservations and you just went completely cold. Wouldn't speak to me for hours. I wasn't angry. I was disappointed. We'd talked about that restaurant for weeks. You punished me with silence because I made one mistake. I didn't punish anyone. I was processing." "And what about money?" Emma interjected. "You control every penny that comes into this house. Rebecca has to ask permission to buy groceries." "That's not true. We have a budget. I built a spreadsheet so we could track our expenses and save for the kids' college." "You interrogate her about every purchase," Emma continued. "Makeup, clothes for work, even Sarah's art supplies. Because we had financial goals. Because I was trying to build something secure for our family." Dr. Ashford raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "This reactive response right here, Daniel. This need to justify and defend instead of simply listening and acknowledging your wife's feelings. These are signs of deeper control issues. I looked at each of them, feeling like I'd walked into someone else's nightmare. What exactly are you suggesting here? Rebecca took a shaky breath, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I want you to attend a retreat. 10 days at Kenneth's facility in the mountains. Silent meditation, no distractions, no phones, no contact with the outside world. Time to really examine yourself and your patterns. A silent retreat. I repeated it slowly, letting the words sink in. For 10 days. The Mountain Serenity Center, Dr. Ashford said, his voice taking on the tone of a practice sales pitch. We help people release their need for control, find inner peace, develop emotional intelligence. I don't need inner peace. I need to understand why my wife is ambushing me with strangers in my own living room. This reaction right here, Emma started. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop for a minute and let me think. I sat down hard in my recliner, the same chair where I'd rocked both kids to sleep as babies. Rebecca, are you actually serious about this? She nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. I've been thinking about divorce, Daniel. I've even talked to a lawyer. But I want to try this first. I want us to try. The word divorce hit me like a physical blow. After 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, building a life together, she was talking about throwing it all away? Over what exactly? Working hard? Providing for our family? Over feeling like I don't matter anymore. Like the kids and I are just accessories to your success story. Everything has to fit into your schedule, your plans, your vision of how things should be. I thought about Sarah and Ryan, both currently at Rebecca's parents' house in Sarasota for spring break. Do they feel that way too? They see how you treat me, Rebecca said quietly. Sarah asked me last week why you never ask about my day anymore. Ryan said you only really pay attention to him when he's talking about school or sports, things you can quantify and measure. The accusation stung, because it held a grain of truth I didn't want to examine. I love those kids more than anything. I know you do. But love isn't just about providing and protecting, Daniel. It's about being present, being emotionally available. The silence stretched between us, heavy with 20 years of accumulated resentments I hadn't even known existed. Finally, Dr. Ashford spoke again. The retreat starts tomorrow morning, Daniel. 10 days of silence, meditation, simple physical work. No outside contact. It's essential for breaking old patterns and developing new awareness. Tomorrow? That's impossible. I have meetings with investors, a presentation to the board. Marcus can handle things, Rebecca said. I already spoke to him about covering for you. My business partner and best friend since Army basic training. They discussed this behind my back, planned it out. You've been planning this. We planned an intervention, Emma said, her voice softer now. Because we all care about you and want your marriage to work. I looked at Rebecca, searching her face for the woman I'd fallen in love with in college. The one who used to laugh at my terrible jokes and stay up all night talking about our dreams. And if I refuse, then I file papers next week. Sarah and Ryan are old enough to choose which parent they want to live with. The ultimatum hung in the air like a toxic cloud. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, the house we'd renovated together, family vacations, Christmas mornings. All of it balanced against 10 days at some mountain retreat with Dr. Granola here. What about Sarah and Ryan? When do they come home? They're staying with my parents until you get back, Rebecca said. This is about us, Daniel. About whether we still have a future together. I picked up the champagne bottle, its weight suddenly meaningless. The celebration I'd imagined felt like it belonged to someone else's life. All right, I'll do it. Rebecca's relief was immediately visible. Thank you. I really think this could help us. Dr. Ashford smiled, and something about it made my skin crawl. I think you'll find this experience truly transformative, Daniel. We'll meet at my Denver office tomorrow morning at 8 sharp. Pack light. Just enough clothes and toiletries for 10 days. Everything else will be provided. What about work? I should at least call Marcus. I'll handle that, Rebecca said quickly. You just focus on getting ready. That night, Rebecca slept in the guest room for the first time in our marriage. I lay awake in our king-size bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. The specific examples they'd given, the anniversary dinner, the budget spreadsheet, my work schedule, all seemed so reasonable when viewed through my lens. But through theirs, maybe I had been controlling. Maybe I had prioritized work over family. Maybe the success I'd been so proud of had come at a cost I'd been too blind to see. The next morning, Rebecca was already gone when I woke up. A note on the kitchen counter said she was showing houses and would call me when I got back. No goodbye kiss, no I love you, no good luck, just a note. Dr. Ashford's Denver office was in a sleek building in the Highland neighborhood, all glass and exposed brick. The waiting room looked like something from a wellness magazine. Plants everywhere, soft lighting, the sound of running water from a small fountain. Ready for your journey? Dr. Ashford asked when I arrived. A white van waited outside with 5 other people already seated inside. 3 men and 2 women, all looking like they'd genuinely hit rock bottom. One man had the shaky hands and hollow cheeks of someone in early sobriety. A woman clutched a tissue box and wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. Another man stared out the window with the 1,000-yard stare I recognized from my army days. Welcome, everyone, to your journey toward healing and self-discovery, Dr. Ashford said, as we pulled away from the city and headed west toward the mountains. The drive took 90 minutes, winding through increasingly remote terrain. Cell service disappeared after the first hour, and the peaks around us grew higher and more imposing. The Mountain Serenity Center sat in a valley that felt completely cut off from civilization, surrounded by snow-capped peaks that blocked out most of the sky. The main building looked like a cross between a ski lodge and a monastery. Rustic wood and stone construction, solar panels glinting on the roof, colorful prayer flags fluttering from every available surface. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Ashford said as we climbed out of the van. Complete isolation from the modern world. No distractions, no temptations to fall back into old patterns. A middle-aged woman named Janet checked us in at the front desk, efficiently taking our phones, car keys, wallets, watches, anything that connected us to our normal lives. I signed papers without reading them carefully, my mind still on Rebecca's tears and the word divorce echoing in my head. These waivers are just standard liability forms, Janet assured me. Insurance requirements, you understand? Now we begin your transformation, Dr. Ashford announced once we'd all been processed. The routine was immediately brutal. 4 a.m. wake-up bell, mandatory cold shower to shock the system into awareness, group meditation in the main hall until sunrise, silent breakfast of oatmeal and fruit, then manual labor, chopping wood, maintaining hiking trails, kitchen work, cleaning, followed by more meditation, simple lunch eaten in continued silence, more physical work, dinner, evening group meditation and discussion, lights out at 9 p.m. sharp. The other participants gradually opened up during our evening group sessions, sharing the traumas and destructive behaviors that had brought them here. Michael was a contractor who'd put his wife in the hospital during a blackout drunk episode. Linda had lost custody of her 3 kids after a crystal meth addiction destroyed her life. Tom had embezzled nearly $200,000 from his accounting firm to pay off gambling debts. Janet, a different Janet from the staff member, had been arrested for shoplifting after her prescription drug addiction spiraled out of control. Heavy stuff. Real problems. Real people who'd genuinely hurt others through their actions. And then there was me. Daniel, Dr. Ashford said during our third evening session, the light from the fire making shadows dance across his face. I think it's time you told the group about your violent episodes. I looked up from my meditation cushion, confused. My what? The incidents that brought you here. The anger and violence that's destroying your marriage. I've never been violent. I don't have anger issues. The other participants exchanged meaningful glances. Michael, the contractor, spoke carefully. Brother, we've all been in denial at some point. It's okay to, I'm not in denial about anything. I work long hours, yes. I have strong opinions about how money should be spent. But I've never laid a hand on my wife or kids. I've never even raised my voice in our house except maybe during Broncos games. Dr. Ashford made careful notes in his leather journal. Interesting. Rebecca described several very concerning incidents to me. Like what exactly? Physical intimidation tactics, aggressive behavior when challenged, explicit threats about what would happen if she left you. I stood up abruptly, suddenly needing air. That's completely untrue. None of that ever happened. Please sit down, Daniel. This defensive reaction you're having right now, this inability to accept responsibility, is exactly the pattern Rebecca described. It's not defensive, it's confusion. You're talking about someone else entirely. Are you calling your wife a liar? The question hung in the air. Everyone was staring at me now, and I could see the judgment in their eyes. Here was the guy who couldn't even admit he had a problem. I'm saying there's been some kind of misunderstanding. The session continued around me, but I barely heard it. Something was very wrong here. The specific incidents Dr. Ashford mentioned, I had no memory of them because they'd never happened. But he spoke about them with such confidence, such detail. That night, I lay awake on my narrow bunk, listening to Michael's snoring and Tom's restless tossing. The digital clock on the wall showed 2:47 a.m. when I gave up on sleep and decided to walk to the bathroom. The hallway was dark except for emergency lighting. I was coming back from the bathroom when I heard voices from the direction of Dr. Ashford's office. Hushed, but urgent. The kind of conversation people have when they don't want to be overheard. My military training kicked in automatically. 25 years later, I still remembered how to move quietly, how to gather intelligence without being detected. I crept down the hallway toward the sound. Timeline for the commitment papers needs to be accelerated. Can't wait much longer, he's starting to ask questions. Hartley's situation needs to be under control before my blood turned to ice. I pressed myself against the wall and moved closer to Dr. Ashford's office window. Through a gap in the curtains, I could see him on the phone. Documents spread across his desk in the lamplight. No, he still believes it's marriage counseling, he was saying, running his free hand through his beard. Janet's got the psychiatric hold forms all prepared. We just need another few days to establish a clear pattern of erratic behavior. I backed away from the window, heart pounding so hard I was sure someone would hear it. Psychiatric hold. Commitment papers. This wasn't a marriage retreat. It was some kind of elaborate setup. But why? And what did Rebecca know about it? I made it back to my bunk without being detected, then forced myself to lie still and think. If they were planning to have me committed, I needed evidence. And I needed to get out of here before they could execute whatever plan they had in motion. The next morning, I went through the routine like nothing had changed. 4 a.m. bell, cold shower, meditation, breakfast, work detail. But I was watching everything now, looking for patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. The office would be empty during afternoon meditation when everyone gathered in the main hall. That's when I'd make my move. At 2 p.m., while Dr. Ashford led the group through breathing exercises, I slipped away from the meditation hall and headed for the administrative building. The office door was locked, but I'd learned lockpicking during my Army intelligence training. 30 seconds with a paperclip from the supply room, and I was inside. The documents were in a manila folder labeled D, Hartley, psychiatric evaluation forms with signatures I'd never made, power of attorney papers, bank transfer authorizations, and a detailed timeline showing Rebecca had been planning this for at least 6 months. My hands shook as I photographed everything with a disposable camera I'd found in the desk drawer. But the real smoking gun was in Dr. Ashford's email inbox, printed correspondence between him and Rebecca outlining the entire scheme. One email from Rebecca, dated 2 weeks ago. Daniel suspects something's wrong but can't figure out what. The videos are ready and the accounts are prepared. How much longer do we need to keep him isolated? Dr. Ashford's response. Another week should be sufficient to establish the psychiatric profile. The commitment papers will hold him for 72 hours minimum, longer if we can demonstrate ongoing instability. I took pictures of everything, my mind reeling. Videos? What videos? That's when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. I quickly put everything back where I'd found it, pocketed the camera, and looked around for another exit. The office had a window that opened onto the back of the building. I slipped through it just as someone tried the door handle. I had to get out of here. Now. The kitchen loading dock was unguarded during afternoon meditation. I grabbed a backpack from the supply room, filled it with energy bars and water bottles, and started hiking east toward the main road. 5 miles through mountain wilderness, using navigation skills I hadn't needed since my deployment in Afghanistan. The terrain was rough, all rocks and fallen logs and patches of late spring snow. But I'd been in worse places, and the adrenaline kept me moving. I had to get back to Denver, had to warn someone, had to figure out what Rebecca was really doing. A trucker named Bill picked me up as the sun was setting behind the mountains. "You look like you just seen a ghost, buddy," he said as I climbed into his cab. "Worse," I replied, still breathing hard from the hike. "I think I just saw my future." Bill was heading to Denver with a load of lumber. He didn't ask too many questions, just handed me a bottle of water and tuned his radio to classic rock. We rode in comfortable silence while I tried to process what I'd discovered. Rebecca was involved, my wife of 20 years, the mother of my children, the woman I'd trusted with everything. She was actively working to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. But why? Bill dropped me at a gas station on the outskirts of Denver as the city lights were coming on. I called a cab with crumpled bills from my pocket and gave the driver my address in Highlands Ranch. The house was completely dark when we pulled up at 9:30 p.m. No lights, no cars in the driveway. Wrong somehow, like looking at a photograph that had been slightly altered. I paid the driver and walked up the familiar flagstone path. Key ready, but the key wouldn't turn. New locks. I walked around to the back of the house, muscle memory guiding me to the loose board in the garage door that I'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. The same board Sarah used to sneak out and meet her friends freshman year, before we caught her and had a long talk about honesty and trust. Inside the garage, I hit the opener button and slipped under the rising door. The house was empty. Not just furniture, everything. Every stick of furniture, every picture, every possession we'd accumulated over 20 years of marriage. The living room where we'd opened Christmas presents with the kids. The kitchen where Rebecca had taught Sarah to make her grandmother's cookies. The family room where Ryan and I had watched every Broncos game for the past 5 seasons. All of it, gone. I walked through the empty rooms, my footsteps echoing off bare walls, feeling like I was touring the skeleton of my former life. In our bedroom, the walk-in closet was completely bare. No clothes, no shoes, no trace that anyone had ever lived here. Sarah's room, her posters gone, her desk gone, even the growth chart marks Rebecca had made on the doorframe every year on her birthday. Ryan's room was equally barren. His trophy collection disappeared. His model airplanes vanished. 20 years of life together, erased. I stood in the empty living room, looking at the place where our couch used to be, where Rebecca and I had cuddled watching movies, where the kids had built pillow forts and played board games. The silence was absolute and devastating. "Daniel! Oh my God, Daniel!" I turned toward the voice. Janet Morrison, our neighbor for 15 years, stood in the doorway leading from the kitchen, her face pale with shock. "Janet, what are you doing here? You can't be here. It's my house." She backed toward the door, pulling out her cell phone. "Rebecca said you attacked her. She said you were committed to a psychiatric facility, that you were dangerous and unstable. That's not true. The restraining order says you can't come within 500 feet of this property. I'm calling the police." "Wait." I held up my hands, showing I wasn't a threat. "Please, just tell me what Rebecca told you." Janet hesitated, finger hovering over her phone. We'd been neighbors for 15 years. She'd watched me mow the lawn every Saturday, seen me teaching Ryan to ride a bike, knew I coached Sarah's soccer team for 3 seasons. "She said you had some kind of mental breakdown, that you pushed her around, threatened her and the kids. She had video evidence." "Video of what?" "You attacking her. Right here in your living room. It was on the local news Tuesday night." The world seemed to tilt sideways. When did this supposedly happen? 3 days ago, according to the timestamp. She moved out the next morning with a police escort, said she was going to stay with Emma until you got help. 3 days ago, I'd been chopping wood and meditating at the retreat, surrounded by witnesses. "Janet, I've been in the mountains since Monday morning. I never touched Rebecca." "But the video was fake? They set me up." Janet studied my face in the dim light from the street lamps. "If that's true." "It is. I need to call my sister." Judge Patricia Reeves answered her phone on the second ring. "Danny? Where are you calling from?" "Pat, I need help. Rebecca's done something." "Are you at the house?" "Jesus, you can't be there. There's a restraining order in effect." "The restraining order is based on fabricated evidence. They set me up." A pause. Then, "Where exactly are you right now?" I looked around the empty house that used to be my home. Standing in what used to be my living room. "Get out immediately. Meet me at Marcus's office in 30 minutes. And Danny, don't talk to anyone else." Marcus Thompson looked like he'd aged 5 years in the 5 days since I'd seen him. My best friend since Army basic training, my business partner for 8 years, the best man at my wedding. He stood when I walked into his office, relief and confusion warring on his weathered face. "Thank God you're okay." "What the hell is going on, Danny?" "You tell me." He gestured to his computer screen with a grim expression. Look at this. The video was professionally shot with crystal clear resolution. It showed me in our living room. I could see our couch, our coffee table, the family photos on the mantel. In the video, I was grabbing Rebecca by the shoulders, shaking her violently, shouting words I couldn't quite make out through the audio. She fell backward, hitting the coffee table hard. I stood over her, fist raised threateningly, face twisted with rage. Except I'd never done any of it. Not 1 second of it had ever happened. The timestamp shows last Tuesday at 3:17 p.m., Marcus said quietly. But you were at the retreat. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning until I escaped. Look at the metadata. Marcus pulled up the file properties, his programmer's eyes scanning the technical details. This is strange. The file creation dates show tomorrow and next week, like someone was creating multiple versions. My sister Patricia arrived 10 minutes later, moving with the same commanding presence that made her one of the most respected judges in Jefferson County. At 60, she still looked like she could face down anyone, her silver hair pulled back severely, steel in her gray eyes. Explain everything, she said without preamble, settling into Marcus's guest chair. I told her the whole story, the intervention, the retreat, the conversation I'd overheard, the documents I'd photographed. She listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification on dates and times. When I finished, she studied the video over Marcus's shoulder. The quality's too perfect. Real security footage has grain, compression artifacts, timestamp burns. This looks like it was shot with professional equipment. Marcus pulled up another window on his computer. There's more, Danny. Your corporate accounts have been frozen pending a mental health evaluation. And look at this. He showed me an email, apparently sent from my company account to our board of directors. It was my resignation letter, effective immediately, recommending Rebecca's cousin Tony Martinez as interim CTO. I never sent this. I know you didn't. But someone with access to your accounts did. Marcus ran his hands through his graying hair. Danny, they've been planning this for months. Tony started asking detailed questions about the company's financial structure 3 weeks ago. Rebecca requested access to the joint business account last Monday morning. Patricia leaned forward. Show me the bank records. Marcus pulled up our corporate banking interface. She's been making transfers. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. In total. He paused, recalculating. $2.3 million has been moved out of various accounts over the past 6 months. The room went completely quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic on I-25. Our savings, I said finally, the number hitting me like a physical blow. The kids' college funds, your retirement accounts, the equity line on the house, the emergency fund, all of it moved to accounts controlled by Rebecca and this Dr. Ashford character. Patricia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then looked at me with an expression I'd learned to fear during childhood. Emergency custody hearing scheduled for Monday morning at 9 a.m. Rebecca's requesting immediate custody of both children and all marital assets, claiming you're mentally unstable and pose a danger to the family. It was Friday night. I had 2.5 days to prove I wasn't insane. We need evidence, Patricia said, shifting into her courtroom mode. Real evidence, not just our word against professionally forged documents and video. I have photos of the documents from the retreat, I said, pulling out the disposable camera. Correspondence between Rebecca and Dr. Ashford. It's a start. Marcus, can you prove definitively that those videos are synthetic? Give me the weekend. I'll need to call in some favors, access some systems I probably shouldn't have access to, but yeah, I can prove they're deepfakes. Patricia nodded grimly. I'm calling Agent Rodriguez at the FBI field office. This crosses state lines, involves bank fraud, identity theft. It's federal jurisdiction now. I spent that night at Marcus's cabin in the foothills outside Morrison, going through every detail of the past 6 months with a fine-tooth comb. Rebecca's sudden interest in meditation and personal growth, her new friendship with Dr. Ashford, the way she'd started questioning every aspect of our life together, my work schedule, my decision-making, my relationship with the kids. How long had she been planning this? And why? Saturday morning brought more devastating news. Patricia called at 7 a.m. I reached out to a contact in Phoenix PD. Dr. Kenneth Ashford isn't a doctor. His real name is Kenneth Ashford Mills, and he's got a substantial criminal record. Fraud, identity theft, running confidence schemes targeting wealthy couples. What about his previous partner? A woman named Emma Mills. She's been using the name Emma Watson for the past 2 years. The pieces clicked into place. Rebecca's sister. Except she's not Rebecca's sister. They're married. Kenneth and Emma Mills have been legally married for 12 years. They've been running elaborate long-term cons on vulnerable couples across the Southwest. I felt physically sick. How many others? At least 6 documented cases that authorities know about. Maybe more. They're very good at what they do, Danny. They research their targets for months, find couples with substantial assets and relationship stress, then slowly insert themselves into the situation. Marcus called an hour later with his preliminary analysis. I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I can prove beyond any doubt that the videos are synthetic. The bad news is they're incredibly sophisticated deepfakes. Whoever created these had access to hours of source material. Your voice patterns from conference calls, security footage from your actual house, even biometric data about your facial expressions and mannerisms. Rebecca would have had access to all of that. Had to be her. But Danny, the technical skill level required here is way beyond what some small-time con artist could pull off. They had professional help. This costs serious money to produce. Probably $50,000 or more for this level of quality. Money they stole from previous victims. Most likely. I'm also finding evidence that someone's been accessing your personal accounts for months. Keylogger software on your home computer, email monitoring, even GPS tracking on your phone. The violation felt almost worse than the theft. Every private conversation, every personal email, every movement monitored and recorded. Patricia drove up to the cabin that afternoon with FBI Special Agent Maria Rodriguez, a serious woman in her 40s who specialized in financial crimes and organized fraud. Mr. Hartley, Agent Rodriguez said, settling at Marcus's kitchen table. We've been tracking the Mills operation for over 18 months. Your case gives us the evidence we need to move against them. She opened a thick file folder and showed me photographs of other victims. Successful men whose lives had been systematically destroyed by the same elaborate scheme. A surgeon in Phoenix who'd lost his practice and his family. A software executive in Tucson who'd been committed to a psychiatric facility for 6 months. A real estate developer in Flagstaff who'd lost everything and committed suicide. The meditation retreat is a key component, Agent Rodriguez explained. It isolates the primary target while they execute the financial transfers and create evidence of mental instability. By the time you realize what's happening, everything's already in motion. The money's gone, the custody papers are filed, and you look like an unstable person making wild accusations. What about my kids? Do they know what's really happening? That's the most insidious part of their operation. They genuinely convince the children that their father is dangerous. The video evidence is extremely convincing, especially to kids who trust their mother implicitly. Saturday evening, Patricia arranged a supervised phone call with Sarah and Ryan through the emergency court system. I hadn't spoken to my children in over a week, the longest we'd ever gone without contact. Dad? Sarah's voice was small and uncertain, nothing like her usual confident tone. Hi, sweetheart. How are you doing? How's Grandma's house? We're scared, Ryan said, his voice cracking. Mom showed us the video of you hurting her. Why did you do that? The question hit me like a knife to the chest. I didn't hurt her, Ryan. That video isn't real. But we saw it. Someone used computer technology to make it look like me, but it wasn't actually me. I would never hurt your mother, or either of you. Silence on the line. I could hear them breathing, processing. Dad, Sarah said finally, her voice careful and suspicious. Mom said you were really sick. That you might not remember doing bad things. Sarah, I want you to think about last Tuesday morning before I left for the retreat. Do you remember what I was wearing? Yeah. Your gray polo shirt and those khaki pants. You were nervous about the meditation thing. Look at the video again. What am I wearing in it? A long pause. I don't remember exactly. Your blue dress shirt, Ryan said suddenly. The one Mom bought you for Christmas. And your dark jeans. That's right. But I was wearing my gray polo that day because I was going to be doing outdoor work at the retreat. And Sarah, didn't you post something on Instagram that morning? A picture of us at breakfast? Yeah. Her voice was getting uncertain now. Check the metadata on that post. Look at what I'm wearing in your picture versus what I'm wearing in the video they showed you. Dad, are you saying Mom lied to us? The question hung in the air. I had to be careful here. They were still my kids, and Rebecca was still their mother, regardless of what she'd done. I'm saying someone lied to all of us. And Sarah, I want you to do something else. Check your college fund statements, the accounts I set up for both of you. Why? Just check them. The login information is in the file cabinet in my office. Top drawer, blue folder. The line went quiet for a long time. Finally, Sarah whispered, Dad, there's no money left. The accounts are empty. Check Ryan's too. More silence. Then Ryan's voice, smaller now. Mine's empty too. Dad, where did our college money go? I closed my eyes, hating that they had to learn about betrayal this way. I'm gonna find out, buddy. And I'm going to fix this. Sunday morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with text messages. Sarah had spent the night investigating, using the computer skills I'd taught her since she was little. She'd sent me dozens of screenshots, bank statements, Instagram posts, metadata from her photos, even technical analysis she'd found online about deepfake detection. Her final text was simple. Dad, I believe you. What can we do to help? Ryan took longer to convince, but when Sarah showed him all the evidence she'd gathered, he started asking harder questions. By Sunday afternoon, they were both demanding answers from Rebecca, who kept insisting they shouldn't worry about adult problems. Marcus spent the weekend diving deep into the technical evidence. Sunday evening, he called with his complete analysis. I can prove beyond any reasonable doubt that the videos are synthetic, he said, but more than that, I've traced the digital breadcrumbs. The deepfake software was purchased using a credit card registered to Emma Mills. The videos were rendered on a high-end computer system registered to Kenneth Mills. And get this, Rebecca made a crucial mistake. What kind of mistake? She used the joint business account to pay Allied Moving and Storage for the house cleanout. I've got receipts showing she supervised the move on Thursday morning while you were provably at the retreat, surrounded by witnesses. That's direct evidence of fraud. It gets better. Allied's security cameras recorded the entire move. Rebecca's on video directing the movers, along with Emma and a man matching Kenneth's description. Sunday night, Patricia called with an update from Agent Rodriguez. The FBI's been monitoring all the bank accounts since Friday. Every transfer, every payment, every financial move they make. They're also ready to arrest Kenneth and Emma Mills the moment we give them the green light. What about Rebecca? She's the primary target now. This is her operation. Kenneth and Emma are just the hired help. She orchestrated everything, including gaining access to your personal and business accounts. Monday morning, I walked into the Jefferson County Courthouse with Patricia and Agent Rodriguez, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would destroy the people who'd tried to destroy me. Rebecca was already there with Dr. Ashford and Emma, looking confident and composed in a conservative navy suit. She'd styled her hair simply, worn minimal makeup, the picture of a frightened wife seeking protection from an unstable husband. Her attorney, a sharp-looking woman named Catherine Webb, presented their case methodically. Rebecca testified first, describing years of alleged emotional abuse, my controlling behavior, the fear she'd lived with daily. She spoke about my obsession with work, my explosive temper, the way I'd isolated her from friends and family. She presented the video evidence with practiced composure, narrating each horrific moment as if she was reliving trauma. She showed bank records demonstrating my erratic spending patterns and financial manipulation. Character witnesses testified about my alleged anger issues and concerning behavior. Dr. Ashford took the stand next, speaking with professional authority about my narcissistic personality disorder and propensity for violence. He recommended immediate psychiatric commitment for the safety of my family and the community. Emma testified tearfully about her sister's suffering, about helping Rebecca and the children escape to safety, about her fear that I would retaliate violently. It was a masterful performance. If I'd been watching it happen to someone else, I might have believed every word of it. Then Patricia stood up. Your Honor, before we proceed further, I'd like to request that FBI Special Agent Rodriguez be allowed to address the court. Rebecca's confident expression flickered for just a moment. Judge Morrison, no relation to our neighbor, nodded. Agent Rodriguez, please approach the bench. Agent Rodriguez stood with quiet authority. Your Honor, at 8 a.m. this morning, federal agents arrested Kenneth Ashford Mills and Emma Mills on charges of wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and operating a criminal enterprise. The defendants have been conducting an elaborate confidence scheme targeting wealthy couples for over 4 years. The courtroom erupted. Rebecca went pale, her composed mask slipping for the first time. Dr. Ashford, Kenneth, looked around like a trapped animal. Furthermore, Agent Rodriguez continued over the noise, our technical analysis unit has conclusively proven that all video evidence presented in this hearing was digitally fabricated using advanced deepfake technology. Judge Morrison banged his gavel for order. The court will hear this evidence. Patricia called Marcus to testify first. He walked the court through his technical analysis with clear, methodical precision, showing how the videos had been created using voice samples from my conference calls, facial mapping from our home security system, and sophisticated rendering software. The telltale signs are subtle but definitive, Marcus explained, pointing to enlarged screenshots on his laptop. Inconsistent lighting, compression artifacts that don't match, and most importantly, the metadata shows these files were created days after the alleged incidents. The trucker who'd picked me up on the mountain road testified next, providing detailed testimony about the exact time and location where he'd found me. His logbooks and GPS records proved I'd been hiking out of the wilderness at the precise time I was supposedly attacking Rebecca. Then came the retreat staff, subpoenaed by the FBI and granted immunity in exchange for their testimony. Janet, the intake coordinator, testified about the suspicious documents she'd been asked to prepare. Two meditation instructors testified about Kenneth's obsession with my case and his questions about commitment procedures. But the most devastating evidence came from Phoenix. Via video link, Dr. Michael Stevens, Kenneth's previous victim, testified about losing his family and his medical practice to the identical scheme. They convinced my wife I was having a psychotic breakdown, Dr. Stevens said, his voice hollow. The videos looked completely real. By the time I proved they were fake, she'd already moved our children out of state and emptied our accounts. I lost everything, my practice, my house, custody of my kids. The turning point came when Patricia called Sarah to testify. "Your Honor," my 17-year-old daughter said, standing straight and confident at the witness stand. "My mother lied to us about our father. She showed us fake videos and told us he was dangerous." She presented her evidence with the methodical precision of someone who'd inherited both her parents' analytical minds. Instagram posts with timestamps, metadata analysis she'd learned from YouTube tutorials, bank records showing the systematic theft of her college fund. "My mom taught me to always question what I'm told and verify facts with evidence," Sarah said, looking directly at Rebecca across the courtroom. "So I did," Ryan testified next, his voice shaking but determined. "Dad never hurt anyone. He coached my soccer team for 3 years, helped me with homework every night, took us camping every summer. The man Mom described wasn't the dad I knew." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "When Sarah showed me the evidence, I realized Mom had been lying to us about everything. She stole our college money and tried to make us hate our dad." The final witness was Dr. Stevens again, this time testifying about the psychological impact on children caught in these schemes. "The most devastating part isn't the financial loss," he said. "It's watching your own children turned against you by someone they trust. These criminals don't just steal money, they steal families." When the evidence was complete, Judge Morrison called for a brief recess. Rebecca sat stunned as Agent Rodriguez approached with handcuffs. "Rebecca Martinez Hartley, you're under arrest for bank fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, and child endangerment." As the bailiffs led her away, she looked at me across the courtroom. For a moment, I saw something like the woman I'd married 20 years ago. But it was too late for regret. "Why?" I asked her as she passed my table. She stopped, turned back. "Because I could," she said quietly. "Because you trusted me completely." The immediate aftermath was a blur of legal proceedings and media attention. Rebecca's arrest made national news. Colorado mom arrested in elaborate deepfake scheme. The story had everything: technology, betrayal, stolen children, missing millions. Kenneth Mills was sentenced to 15 to 20 years as a repeat offender. Emma Mills received 8 to 12 years after cooperating with federal investigators. Their operation had victimized at least 11 families over 4 years, stealing nearly $8 million. Rebecca's sentencing hearing took place 6 months later. Sarah and Ryan both chose to give victim impact statements. "You taught me to value honesty above everything else," Sarah said, standing at the podium in the packed courtroom. "Then you built our entire relationship on lies. You stole my college fund, but worse than that, you tried to steal my father." Ryan was even more direct. "I don't understand how you could do this to your own family. Dad never hurt anyone. You did." Despite their testimony asking for leniency, she was still their mother, Judge Morrison sentenced Rebecca to 8 to 12 years in federal prison. The financial recovery was more complicated. The FBI traced most of the stolen money through a complex network of offshore accounts and cryptocurrency exchanges. "We recovered about 60% of what was taken, enough to restore most of the kids' college funds and our retirement savings. Marcus and I restructured the company, implementing advanced security protocols and ironically launching a new division focused on deepfake detection technology. The experience had taught us how vulnerable everyone was to this kind of sophisticated digital manipulation." Sarah chose to take a gap year, deferring her admission to Colorado State University to help Ryan adjust and to testify in related cases against the Mills operation. She started a blog about digital literacy and fraud awareness that quickly gained national attention. Ryan struggled more with the betrayal, spending several months in therapy to process what had happened. But gradually, he found his way back to himself. His robotics team won the state championship that spring, the first time in our school's history. The house felt different when we moved back in. Patricia had hired a decorator to help us start fresh, and slowly we began rebuilding our life together. New furniture, new family photos, new traditions. 1 year later, I sat in Sarah's dorm room at CSU, helping her hang pictures on the wall. She'd eventually decided she was ready for college, though she'd changed her major to computer science with a focus on cybersecurity. "You know what's strange, Dad?" she said, adjusting a photo of the three of us from Christmas morning. "I'm not angry at Mom anymore. Just sad." "Sad about what?" "That she thought so little of us. That she believed we'd never figure out the truth. She almost succeeded. But she didn't, and that's what matters." Ryan was thriving as a junior, his confidence restored. He'd started dating a girl named Amy, who thought his family's story was totally insane but kinda cool. He was already talking about studying engineering in college. "Ready to go?" I asked Sarah as we finished setting up her room. She nodded, then hugged me tight. "Dad, I'm sorry I ever doubted you." I held her close, remembering the fear in her voice during that first phone call, the confusion and pain we'd all lived through. "You were manipulated by experts, sweetheart. What matters is that you questioned what you were told and found the truth." Walking back to my car through the campus, I got a text from Ryan with a photo from his latest robotics competition. First place again, grinning wide, holding his trophy high. Life was different now, but in many ways better. We'd learned hard lessons about trust and betrayal, about the power of technology to both destroy and heal. But we'd survived it together, and that made us stronger. The mountain peaks stretched endlessly beyond Boulder, the same peaks where this nightmare had begun. But now they looked like possibilities instead of barriers, and for the first time in over a year, the future looked bright.